So we're going to talk about purchase orders. We're looking at the syllabus right now. We're going to start with a simple purchase order, go through that. Then we're going to go through a general review of the screen so that you understand the different areas. And then I'm going to go through a detailed review of the screen, talk about the different fields. And I'm also going to go through electronic ordering throughout the time that I'm training. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Of course, we start in inventory control because that's where purchase orders is at. So I'm going to go to inventory control and go to purchase orders. We're going to start with a simple purchase order. We begin by hitting F4 New and go through 4 basic steps in creating a simple purchase order. Step number 1, tell Anthology who you want to order this from. Put in a vendor name. So I'm just going to put in just a few letters, hit enter off the keyboard. It brings up the vendor assistant, hit enter again, and you can see the vendor name goes right in. Step number 2, tell Anthology what it is that you want to purchase. Now you'll do that down here in this field. It's asking for an ISBN SKU. So what you're looking for is a SKU. Right? It could be non-book, it could be book. For a book item, its SKU is the ISBN number. For a non-book, it may be the UPC code, it may be a naming convention, whatever you have on that record. So you want to go ahead and enter the SKU in here. Now you can enter the SKU in 3 different ways. One is to go ahead and hand type a SKU in here. That's actually fairly common for the buyer to do, to go ahead and put a SKU in and hit enter off the keyboard. Another way is to scan the item if you have it. That's not so common because, you know, if you're buying it, chances are you don't have the item. But if you had the item, you can go ahead and scan it. A third way is to go ahead and search your inventory, and you can do that by clicking on the ellipse button. When you click on the ellipse button, it brings up the inventory assistant, and now you can use the search by fields to find the inventory item you're looking for. So let's just go ahead and grab an item. Say I'm going to order that. I decide what the order quantity is going to be. I can check the rest of the information. Now you'll notice there's no discount here. That might be okay. With a discount schedule, you won't see anything come in here. You decide whether you want to allow a back order or not, and then you click on the enter line. And then you continue to do step 2. So we're going to go ahead and grab some other things. We're going to pretend that I'm hand typing this in. When you hand type in, the important thing here is to hit enter off the keyboard. That's what tells Anthology to go out to inventory, find the record, bring it in, and then allow you to determine what you want to order. Again, checking the rest of the information. So you didn't want to allow a back order. Go ahead and hit the enter line, and now you see it's above. Okay, so you're going to continue that process, step number 2. Step number 3 is easy. You're going to hit F10 save. Okay? It's not really, the first time in when you're creating it, it's not really recognized in the system until you hit F10 save, and then that number appears and the items are on it. Now I can go ahead and leave this purchase order, go off, do anything else I need to do, come back to it any time. Okay? At some point, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a quick question. You know, I noticed here up in the upper right here, you have allow back orders checked, but on the individual lines, you are unchecking the back order. How is that respected? Is that respected on the, you know, on the line item individually for each line item?
Well, we're going to talk about electronic ordering in particular. When you are talking about not electronic ordering, it's just a memo to yourself or to whatever you've printed out. And so it doesn't have an impact. But with electronic ordering, it has a very real impact on when you're communicating with your vendor, and we'll talk about that when we hit electronic ordering.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so then the last step, at some point as a buyer, you're ready. You're ready to place your order. You probably have tweaked this out the way you need it to be, but we're keeping it simple. When you place an order, you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to hit F6EO and then click on Send Order. It's going to go from Anthology out to the vendor's server, and then the vendor will respond with a file. That file will come back to you. So that's electronic ordering. Or you can hit F12 Post. So F12 Post is telling Anthology an order has been placed. It may be that you're going to print it out right now and send it to a vendor, or it may be that you've already communicated with the vendor. You've gone to a website, you've talked to a rep, by whatever means you've placed an order, you still need to put it in an Anthology. So in that case, you hit F12 Post. When you click on Post, Anthology is going to take action on this purchase order. Now, what are the actions it's going to take? There's 3 different things Anthology is going to do when you post. 1, it's going to update the on orders throughout the system for the items that you're purchasing. 2, it's going to change the status from draft to open, and we're going to talk about statuses in a moment. And 3, it changes where it's at from purchase orders to receiving. Think about where you're at in the process. As a buyer, you're going through and figuring out what you want to buy, and by posting, you're saying, okay, I've talked to the vendor, I've placed this order. The next thing that's going to happen is the vendors are going to send those items to you. When the items come to you in one moment in time, Anthology calls that a shipment, and you need to receive that shipment. So this is going to move from the purchase order screen to the receiving screen. So let's go ahead and post this. Are you sure? Yes. Now you could print. If you wanted to print out, fax it over, or create a file and attach it to an email, whatever you'd like to do. We don't need to today, so I'm going to go ahead and say no. Now we're on PO number 27. Notice how PO number 27 has gone away. Let's go ahead and look to see where it went. I closed down purchase orders. I'm doing that just so you stay clear about where I'm at. I go to inventory control. I'm going to receiving. When I go to receiving, notice how PO number 27, there it is on the screen. I click on the Details tab to see the details of it, and now I can see the 2 items that I put on there. Okay, that's a simple purchasing. Any questions about that? You good, David?
No. Yep, no questions about that. Pretty straightforward.
Okay, and notice that the status is open and that the on orders have now been updated. Okay, so let's go back, take a closer look at purchase orders. First, we go through a general layout of the screen. I'm trying to teach you these areas because they're common throughout Anthology. And when you learn what they do and you come on to new screens, you'll have an idea how those screens work as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. From PO number to status, status over to allow back orders and back up again, this long rectangle is called the header. Now the header sets the defaults for the rest of the screen. So if I put a discount up here, it's going to affect the discounts that are coming in here when I create a new line. It's going to be the default. Whatever I have here for allow back orders, it's going to affect the default that comes in here when I create a new line. Okay, so the header sets the defaults for the rest of the screen. This middle section right here where there's many columns. And then go to the right so you can see that there are more columns here. This is called the grid. The grid is designed to show you, in this case, what you're ordering, almost any way you need to see it. Below that are the line item entry fields. Line item entry fields. So the line item entry fields edit or add to whatever's in the grid. So if I want to make a change in the grid, I would go ahead and come to the line item entry fields and make the change here to edit it. I can also add by hitting F5 new line, etc. These fields over here are the totals. They're your totals. It's your cost, how much you're writing the check for, what are you putting on your credit card. Where you see these tabs, inventory, sales, POs, returns, CBOs, this is the info panel. You're going to see the info panel throughout Anthology. It's giving you more information about a single inventory item. So by clicking on Illusions, I'm now seeing the information I have about Illusions. So in the purchase order screen, the info panel is helping you to make more comprehensive reordering decisions. This is really where Anthology shines, is right here in the info panel. Down below, you're going to see buttons. Delete a line, create a new PO, post. These are all actions you can take on the screen. So these are action buttons. But these are not all the actions you can take. So if you needed to figure out all the actions you can take on the screen, well, where would you go? Well, you'd go to the Actions menu. The Actions menu shows you the buttons that were at the bottom. They're now displayed at the top. And you can see some added actions that were not represented by buttons. Okay, so I have a golden rule. I tell everyone, if you ever have a question in Anthology and you don't know what the next step is, you want to take an action, and you don't know how to do that action, check the Actions menu first. And as a beginner, it answers the majority of your questions. It's almost always within the actions menu. So start there. But it's not always the answer. So it's only what you need some of the time. In fact, probably most of the time. So as an example, let's say that you had an item on here. Let's use illusions as the example. And you wanted to move it from this purchase order to another one. Well, rather than coming in, deleting the line, adding it to the other purchase order, you think there must be a way to be able to just move this from this PO to another one. And there is. So if you go to the Actions menu to check first, you'll notice that there is an option to move to another PO. So check the Actions menu first. Okay, that's the general layout of the screen. Any questions? Okay. You're muted, David, so that's, well, we didn't hear anything.
No.
But,
yeah,
okay,
I understand.
there we go.
You have to understand it does take me a moment to unmute. Just to
Oh, sorry.
So, and I'm
Okay.
happy to do that, but no, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, very good. Let's start talking about the details we're seeing on the screen. Starting with the fields. Notice that there are fields on here that are white, and there are fields on here that are not white. They're what we call grayed out. And on my screen, they're literally grayed out, but on your screen, they may be tan or another color. But the term grayed out means it's not available. So these white fields, if you notice in these white fields, you can make changes to them. So you know throughout Anthology, wherever you see a white field, you can edit that field. And wherever you see a field that is not white, that is grayed out, you can't change that field. Anthology controls that. So that's usually one of the first questions asked on many screens is, can I change that field? Well, now all you have to do is look to see if it's white or not or grayed out, and then you'll know the answer. So you'll notice up here, PO number, the PO number is grayed out on my screen. That means obviously, no, I can't change this number. But what I want you to know as an owner or manager, this is a setup question. You actually could do your own PO numbers if you wanted to. You need to change that in the setup. And if that's what you've decided to do, then this field is then white and available, and you can use your own PO numbers. Okay, so the live version is grayed out because a lot of clerks find this confusing, so the default is it's grayed out. But in the training copy, it's actually white and available, so you can practice with that and play with it and see what it's like, and then make the decision of how you want it set up. The ordered field, ordered by. This is the buyer. Who is responsible for this purchase? That's the name that goes in here. Now, you might not see your name on here at the beginning. So if you need to get your name on this list, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to Master Files and go to Users and add your name. You don't have to turn security on. You just need to have your name in there, and then it will appear in the drop-down box. Promo field. Some vendors will give you an extra special discount if you electronic order and you're buying a certain number of items within a certain date and time. When they offer that, they're going to give you a code if you want to participate, and the code goes here. Okay. Now, statuses. I spend a little time on statuses because what I found over the years, during training day, people tend to get this process. They understand where they're at in Anthology and what's happening. I start at the beginning, I go to the end, and it's pretty straightforward. But a few months into this, then people start to become confused, disoriented. They look at their purchase orders. They don't know what's going on with them. The statuses will tell you where it's at in the system. So we're going to go over the statuses and what they mean, and we're going to go over them in order. Then in the future, when you're looking at a purchase order, all you have to do is look at the status, and you know where it's at in the system and what you're working with. So the status here, it always begins with draft. The first status is the draft status. That's the buyer's status. That means you're working on this order. The draft PO is like a scratch pad for the buyer to decide what it is that they want to buy. So when you see a draft status, you know that an order has not yet been placed. That's the important part. An order has not been placed. If it says draft, you've not placed the order with your vendor. So this is for the buyer to go ahead and fill that out and figure it out. If they don't like it, they can void it. It goes away. Anthology does not take a draft PO seriously because no order has been placed yet. Once you've posted or electronic ordered, the status changes from draft to open. Open means an order has been placed. the vendor's been communicated with. So Anthology takes an open, shipment, or complete. We'll talk about those in a second. They take those statuses much more seriously. A vendor has been communicated with. You have placed an order. Those records stay forever in your system. Okay, so open means when you see it, an order's been placed. Now, eventually, the vendor's going to fill that PO. So they're going to send you items. And remember, when items come through the door in one moment in time, Anthology calls that a shipment. And you need to receive that shipment. When you receive it, you go into receiving, you put in the quantities and go through the other processes, and then post. Anthology creates a brand new record, and that record has a status of shipment. Now, it's a historical document. It's something that's already been done, but that's a very important document, and it's the next step in this process. So a shipment record is where the cost of goods sold is figured out. It's where the vendor invoice information is stored. So that's a key document that's in your system. Okay, your shipment's going to come in, and either on the very first shipment or over multiple shipments, eventually everything will either be received or canceled. And at that point, your purchase order will be complete. So when you see a complete status, it means it's done. There's nothing more you can do with this. Now that part of the purchase order is a historical document. So draft, open, shipment, and complete. Those are the 4 statuses. You always know where it's at within the system.
That sounds great.
Okay. Next field, vendor field. You notice there's an asterisk in front of it. Asterisk in Anthology means it's a required field. So vendors are required. Notice it's a vendor, but there's 2 other fields that have asterisks in front of them, ISBN SKU and ordered quantity. Only 3. So we've got a lot of fields on here. Some people feel overwhelmed when they see this, but really only 3 required fields on here. Okay, so vendor's one of them. When you enter a vendor name into the purchase order, what is Anthology doing behind the scenes? Well, Anthology is going to master files and going to vendors, finding that record, and then pulling in whatever information you put on that record. So let me just go ahead and select Ingram here. So whatever, notice the account number I have on here. If I go to details, this is how Anthology knows what to put in that purchase order as far as terms, ship via, your preferred SKU format, whether or not you want to allow back orders. So this is setting the initial defaults coming in when you put in the vendor name. Remember, whatever you put in the header sets the defaults, and the first moment you do that is when you select the vendor name. If the things in the purchase order, if it's filling in a way you don't like, you want to come back to your master file vendor record and make the changes there, because that's going to affect every purchase order. Let's talk about preferred SKU format for a moment. You're seeing ISBN 13. You also have ISBN 10. When we transitioned, this was very important because some vendors were working with ISBN 10, some were working with ISBN 13. Not as critical now because most of them are ISBN 13. Your records inside Anthology don't have to be one or the other. It's your choice. But when you communicate with the vendor, they need it to be one way. So let's say they want all of the inventory coming to them to be in ISBN 13 format. No problem. You select it here, and then any electronic ordering or anything printed out will have the ISBN 13 format to it, no matter what your inventory record shows. Okay, you have some other options here. GTIN, I'm not ever sure I remember this clearly, but it's like Global Tracking Item Number or something very close to that. This is a number that's used globally, though not in the United States. It's a 14-digit number. And we do sell to businesses outside the United States, and they need this. Item UPC. For those people who have taken a class on non-book inventory, they would have heard that they need to put the vendor's reorder number in the inventory record in the item UPC field. So it's sitting in that inventory record what the vendor reorder number is. Well, you do that so that when you come to purchase orders, if you have a vendor who's a non-book vendor, you can say for that format, make it item UPC. So no matter what your ISBN SKU is, your item UPC is the vendor's reorder number. And remember from class, the reason why that's important, the UPC code is rarely ever, if never, the vendor's reorder number. And you want that in the ISBN SKU field so you can bring it up at the cash register. So item UPC brings in the vendor's reorder number so you can go ahead and create purchase orders for your non-book vendors. In this case, Ingram is the book vendor. We need ISBN 13. So going back to the purchase order, how does Anthology know when you go to print out that purchase order what address to put for that vendor? Well, it's right here in the Addresses tab. So again, it depends on what you fill in. It's the information you fill in. You can come here, put that in, and then that's what's going to print out on the PO. Discount schedules. If you know what your discount schedule is for your vendor, you can come in here and fill it in. And then Anthology is going to calculate that automatically in the purchase order for you. Electronic ordering. EO is electronic ordering. So this is how Anthology knows what to do when you go to F6EO and then click on the Send button. Anthology is pulling the information in here in order to be able to process the electronic order. So what does it do? Well, the first thing it does is it creates an order file when you hit Send Order, creates an order file, and then Anthology goes to the vendor server. How does it know to do that? Well, you tell Anthology that when you choose a vendor site. We know what the address is behind the scenes, so we go right to the server. And then the next thing we do is we log in as you. And we know that because you put your user ID and your password in here. So we log in as you at the vendor site. And then we go into your in directory and drop your order file in. So now your order file is in your in directory. And then we go to your out directory and we sit and wait. So now on the vendor side, what's going to happen is the vendor is going to come to your folder, find your order file, bring it in and process it. It's going to determine what it can, what they can fill for you, give you status as to why they can't fill the ones they cannot fill. Has there been price changes, ISBN changes, all kinds of information. They're going to create a brand new file called a confirmation file. So once they've done that, they've processed your order, they're going to drop it into your out directory where Anthology is waiting. Anthology is going to take that confirmation file, bring it back to you and show it to you and ask you, do you want to see it on the screen? Do you want to print it out? And once you've looked at it and you're good with that, it's going to ask you if you want to post. You'll say yes, and you're done with that process of electronic ordering. So all the information for electronic ordering is here on this screen. Now, if you're a single user or you're ordering off a point-of-sale station, minutes to wait can be very important to modify. The minutes to wait. How long do you want Anthology to wait at that out directory for that confirmation file? Don't want if the file never comes, you don't want Anthology out there. And while Anthology is sitting at the out directory, you can't do anything within Anthology on that computer. So you can do other things on that computer, but Anthology is there at the out directory, only on that computer. But that computer is tied up, waiting for that. So how long do you want it to sit there and wait? Well, obviously you'd like it to sit and wait only as long as it typically takes. So you're going to see in the EO documents ideas on about how long it takes. You're also going to find out from your own experience and that it varies. It varies from the day of the week. It varies from the season of the year, how long it takes. So choose your minutes to wait accordingly. So back to the point-of-sale computer. If you only have one computer or you're ordering on the point-of-sale, you probably don't want it tied up for a long period of time. There is no problem with it timing out and you coming back and getting the confirmation file. It just makes it 2 steps, that's all. I mean, that may be exactly what you want to do. So you can go ahead and put in 1 minute here to wait, let it time out, and then come back in the appropriate time and pick up that confirmation file. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. Okay, so that's electronic ordering, and that's how it knows what to do. Okay. If you don't fill in the electronic ordering tab here, your F6EO button on the purchase order screen is grayed out. There's such a relationship between the two, and we'll take a look at that here. Let me close down vendor. So on our purchase order screen, notice that's how Anthology knew what account number to put in. That's how Anthology knew the terms, ship via, SKU format, allowing back orders or not, setting the defaults. Then the discount schedule, which is filled in, and that the F6EO button is now black and available instead of grayed out. So all that coming from the vendor file. Okay. Let's move on. Sure, go ahead.
When I was talking to my Ingram rep, they said that there was a way for me to check whether or not books were available with them. Is that something that Anthology supports?
It only supports the flashback. It's actually not an issue of what Anthology supports per se. It's information that's available. So people who are using the X12 format don't have the option to do stock check. But if you have a flashback format you're working with, which is definitely Ingram, but there's a few others that use flashback besides, you'll get the do stock check button showing up and available. So you can go ahead and check the whole order at one time. Okay, so if you don't have that available, if you're using the X12 format, you can go ahead, you still can use your internet stock check. Now remember, your internet stock check is different than your electronic ordering stock check. Your internet stock check, you can use the button up here to go ahead and check an individual title, what the availability is, not just with Ingram, but all the vendors across, that you've signed up with. So that would be another way to go ahead and check the availability before you placed an order without having the stock check functionality and the F6EO. Does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. I've forgotten where we're at. Oh, we were going through the header. Okay. And so the edited field. The edited field is showing you the last time someone came in here, made a change, and then saved it. So you have to change something. Let's just change the order quantity for this one. So you've had to make a change and then hit the F10 save button, and then it puts that date in to the edited field. So you always know the last time you came in and made changes. When you're working with a lot of POs, that can be draft POs, that can be very helpful. Okay, printed works the same way. So the last time you printed, a date shows up there. And in the day of faxing, this was very helpful because chances are the last date that you printed was also your order date because you faxed it over. The due date field, you can put anything in here you want. This is your field. Anthology does not recognize it anywhere else in the system. So due date, if you have an author signing coming up or you want to go ahead and take advantage of a promotion that's going on, anything like that, go ahead and use that due date field. EO status. So again, the cycle of electronic ordering going through is monitored by statuses. So there's 3 of them. Let's go ahead and go through them. Every PO starts out with the status of not sent. So if you do nothing at all, it's going to have that status. If you select F6EO and you click on Send Order, and then it times out or something happens, it's going to come back with a status of sent with the date. And then you know that it was sent, but not confirmed. So if it timed out, and that's a normal process, you're good. Just wait your time, come back, get the confirmation. We'll look at that in a little bit. If something happened, you probably want to call the electronic ordering department of your vendor and make sure they got it. But sent with the date means that it got sent out. Okay, so when the confirmation file comes back, and Anthology gets that, then it's going to have EO status is confirmed with the date. So you know a confirmation came back and is available. So that's the cycle for electronic ordering statuses. Discount. Remember we're talking about the header discount. It's in the header. So it's setting the defaults for the rest of the screen. When you have a discount schedule, of course you don't typically use that. And that's what we have here. Remember we have a discount schedule for Ingram. Okay. But what happens if you're doing a promotion, you're getting an extra special discount for some reason, and you want to override that schedule, or you don't have one? You can go ahead and put your discount in there then. So let's say that it is 42%. Okay, so I hit enter. It came up with this message. It came up with this message because they do have a discount schedule. So it's Anthology's way of saying, hey, did you remember you have a discount schedule? Did you want to do this? Yep, no problem. That's exactly what I want to do. Now, on a draft purchase order, when you do that, Anthology is going to go ahead and change everything you already have on the purchase order to that discount. It does not do the same thing in receiving. The behavior is a little bit different. Okay? But its main focus here is that it also, when you create a new line and you go to enter it in, it's going to put in automatically, you're not seeing it here, but it will automatically put in that 42% when it puts the line up into the grid. Okay. Same thing with allow.
Question.
Sure.
Sure. Hey, I noticed that on the Ingram vendor tab there was a discount schedule, and it looked like if the purchase was over 50% or $50, I got a 40% discount, and it looked like it incremented up to where if I spent over $300, I got 42 or 41.5. I can't remember what it said in the discount schedule. When I add items to the purchase order, if I break that threshold, will it change the discounts on all the line items for me?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why it doesn't put it, and when you first add the line, it doesn't put the discount in when it's using a discount schedule, because it's going, when it goes up, then it's going to cross-check either your quantity or your retail amount and determine how it fits within the schedule, and then change the schedule accordingly, and change the discounts accordingly, rather.
Oh, great. That makes perfect sense. Thanks.
Sure. That's why the quantity field is here. Now, the quantity field is simply the sum total of your ordered column. People think that it's the number of titles that you have on here, and it's not. Okay, you may be working with non-book items, so it's the number of, the quantity that you have on this purchase order, and that's how discounts are typically calculated. So that's what you need to know. Same thing with the retail. The retail is the value of the inventory sold, and a lot of discounts are calculated on the retail amount. So you need to know what that is. You notice the retail versus your cost down here. And of course the difference is the discount. The canceled date. On a draft purchase order you won't see a canceled date in here. That's because when you void a draft PO, we take it out of the tables. So that's good news. As a buyer, you can go ahead and create as many purchase orders as you want, no problem. But just remember that if you have a purchase order and you accidentally void it, there's a very good chance we can't bring it back for you. Okay? Or if we can, it's not without a high cost. So do make sure that that's what you want to do before you void it. But feel confident that when you void it, it's gone from the tables and you never have to worry about it again. And again, the reason we're willing to do that is because you have not communicated with anyone. This is your scratch pad to work with as you want. Okay, terms ship via coming in from your vendor record as a buyer. Sometimes this has an impact on your buying decisions. What are my terms with the vendor? How much is it going to cost me shipping-wise, etc. Your SKU format. So now you're seeing your SKU format come in. Remember that it is just a default. So I can come here and change it if I wanted to. And also remember the SKU format here is about how you electronic order or you print. So it doesn't make any changes on the screen. You notice here there's an ISBN 13, here's an ISBN 10. It doesn't change your inventory records. It just changes the output on the purchase order. So you can change this to whatever the vendor wants in their communication. Allow back orders. As I mentioned, setting the default. So if you're not electronic ordering, it's kind of just reminding you what you wanted to do. When you communicated with the vendor, what did you tell the vendor? What's your, within your relationship, what's going on? And then the header, setting the defaults, as the items come in. So it's defaulted here to allow back order. If you electronic order, it has even more of an impact. It's going to communicate that information to the vendor. So if you don't allow back orders, or you're dealing with an item that does not allow back orders, what you're telling the vendor is, if you don't have it, then take it off the purchase order as though it never happened. That's how the vendor handles it on their end. If they get the electronic order and they cannot fill that order, they take it right off. They don't back order it, and it's gone. So when that file comes back, Anthology does the same thing. It takes that item right off the purchase order. But we don't let it go off into vaporware. We take care of it, but it's not on this purchase order, not on purchase order number 26. Instead, it goes to a purchase order that Anthology creates. Right? So now it's on a different PO. And you'll know that that PO is a PO that Anthology created because there was an electronic order that did not allow back orders. It'll have a note in the note field that says cascaded from. It'll tell you the PO number, cascaded from PO number 26 on 8/27/09. So then you know that's when you placed the electronic order, that's what the purchase order was, and now these items were items that were not available and thereby not purchased. Okay. It's important to know when you're electronic ordering whether you're dealing with a publisher or a distributor, because this is handled just a little bit differently depending on whether it's a publisher or distributor. So if you're dealing with a publisher, they want it all or nothing. Either everything's allowed to be back ordered or nothing is allowed to be back ordered. So everything on here has to be consistent. Now, every publisher has their own little nuance as to how that's communicated, and I'm not going to make you memorize that. What I'm going to say as a general rule is decide in the header how you want it. I do want to allow back orders. Then you select it. I don't want to allow back orders. I deselect it. Remember, it's for everything. And then go to Actions and flow your header and flow your BO status down so that every item on there has the same status as your header. So now that the lines in the header match, with the majority of the publishers, you'll be fine, no problems. With a distributor, they're willing to look at it line by line. They're willing to come to this and say, oh, Illusions, you don't want to allow back order there, that's fine, no problem. Kabbalah, you do want to allow back order, that's fine, no problem, and go through this line by line and looking at the line here and determining whether or not you want to allow that back order. So it's different with a distributor than it is with the publisher, and you need to keep that in mind. Okay, that's the header. Any questions about that?
No, I think that's pretty. I understand that. But essentially, speaking, if we have if we have allow back orders not checked and we order something and the order's not filled, Anthology then does create a purchase order for that vendor with those line items on it. Is that correct?
That's correct. So brand new purchase orders that Anthology creates, and it does have the same vendor name on the purchase order. Okay. The next area we want to talk about is the grid. So notice that we have a number of columns across here. When I run my mouse across these columns, notice how the column heading changes a little bit. There's an orange underlining, and my columns are already white, but on your screen you may notice that the columns also turn white. Whenever you see that in Anthology, you know you're working with a grid that's dynamic, that you can go ahead and move this around any way you want it to be pretty much, meaning that you can go ahead and change the column sizes. You can shrink it down, expand it out. You can sort it by any column if you click on the label. So now it's sorting by ISBN. And when you're dealing with a number, it goes from low to high. But I can click it again. Notice how that the label is now, it's no longer italicized, and the order is from high to low. Okay, so it'll reverse the order back and forth, and I can do that with any one of these columns. I can also move columns from the right to the left. So let's say that I've been building this purchase order as a buyer. So it'd come in from the cash register in different places, but I decided that I was going to place a publisher order first and try to fill as much as I can. I can go ahead and grab this publisher column and drag it over to the title description so I can actually see side by side the title description with the publisher. And now that it's organized, I can go ahead and multi-select. I'm holding down the Shift key and clicking. And then I can go to Actions and move to another PO and send it to the publisher's purchase order and fill that purchase order that way. So the grid really is powerful in helping you as a buyer, as a tool. It's a powerful tool to fill that need as a buyer. Okay, the one thing you can't do in the grid, to be clear on, you can't change the grid directly. You can try, but it's not going to work. If you want to change what's in the grid, if you want to edit it, you need to go down to the line item entry fields. So if I want to change Kabbalah, for any reason, I need to click on it, notice the black tick mark in the grid, then I need to go down to the line item entry fields and make the change that I want to make down there. Okay, so if I don't want to allow back orders, I come down here, I deselect it, I click on the enter line. Notice how the back order OK is now gone. So any editing can be done in the line item entry fields. I can also add when I'm in the line item entry field. So I hit F5 new line, and you'll notice this is where we started from. When we did a simple PO, this is what the screen looked like. And remember from that simple PL that there's 3 different ways I can get information in here. So, whatever works out best for me, I can go ahead and do that. I wonder if I still have this in here. I do. Okay, so you can go ahead and type it in, hit Enter off the keyboard. It finds that record, puts the information in. Now I can determine how many I wish to order, the list price, the discount, etc. Now, when I'm determining the order quantity, I might want to have more information about ordering that. As a buyer, I want to be clear that I really do want the quantity that I'm saying I want to buy. So I have information available to me to help me with that. I can go to the info panel down at the bottom. Okay, so the info panel, I can go ahead and check to see what the on-hands already are. So I'm ordering this one. Do I have any in inventory now? How many will I have when I buy this? Well, I'll have just one, as far as I know. Okay. Do I have any on back order? Do I have any on order? And I do. I have one on order. So now I know if I order this, I'm actually going to have 2, not 1. I can also look at my sales and say, well, can my sales support the quantity that I'm going to have? What were my sales last week, last month, last year? Can I support this? Now, you're not seeing these sales numbers here. Let's say that that's what really happened. I could still ask myself more questions as a buyer. One of the things I might ask myself is it a brand new book? No, this is older. Okay, well, is it new to me? Is it the first time I am receiving it? Yes. I've never received this before, so that's why I've got no sales. So I'm starting to understand the information that I've got. So the numbers that I'm understanding I'm going to have is based on the fact that I've got no history with this particular inventory item. Now this is the type of information you can't get from a vendor's website. It's here in Anthology. That's why you want to come here and make your decisions. The information is at hand. So let's say that I did have sales, and I wanted to see where it was at within its sales cycle. It said I sold 7 of them, but when did I sell them? Is it selling now? If this is a newly released, am I still in the hot time of that and need to get this in? Or has it tapered off? It's a month later, and now there's not as much excitement about it. I can see that in the numbers here. It shows you the last 12 months of sales. POs. Is it on any other purchase order? The most important is draft. This is on any other draft purchase order, and I can see that it isn't. If it had been, that's a place where people can overorder. If you have it on this draft and another draft, and it's not showing up in an easy place to see, then you order both of those, you're going to have more than you originally intended, and that can be a problem. So you want to come here and check to see if you have it on any other draft. Return to vendor. Did you ever return to vendor because it wasn't selling well? And maybe you forgot about it, and now it's come back in again. Well, you can check that. Remember your filters at the bottom. So you can go ahead and check to see, did I ever return to vendor because it wasn't selling well? Better be careful about what I buy. CBOs. Is anybody waiting for this? Do I have a customer back order associated with this? Who and what is the status of that special order? I can see that on this tab. And we'll talk about that a little more in a moment. So your inventory, your info panel tells you all that information. Then as a buyer, I can confirm that, yes, I want to buy 1, maybe I want to buy 1 more, have 3 in the shelf, the movie's coming out, whatever. Check my price, check my discount, see how now, because it's in the header, Anthology is filling it in. When there's nothing in the header and you're using a discount schedule, this is still going to be blank. It'll be filled in when it gets into the grid. People ask me, can I put a discount for a specific item that's different from everything else, meaning I'm getting an extra special discount on this specific book. Can I put that in? Yes, you can. So I can come in here and say I'm getting 42.5% on this one. When I do that, the lock icon shows up, and you're going to see it in the grid as well. Do I want to allow back orders on this? Let's say, yes, I do. Click on the Enter line. Now I've added a new item in. Quantity of 2. You can see the discount is different. It's locked in. I'm allowing a back order, etc. So that's how you add, and that's how you edit. Okay. One of the other questions I get, UOM, what does that mean? Unit of measure. With books, it's going to be each. 90% of the time it's going to be each. But if you're dealing with non-book items, you may have multiple unit of measures you're working with. So it'll be available in the drop-down if you have multiple units associated with that inventory record, and it'll be there to select. Okay, let's work with an item that actually has. So I want you to notice I've selected an item and said, oh, I want to reorder that. I'm looking at this and it's saying, it's giving me a message. Oh, hey, this is on a purchase order already. It's a draft purchase order. You don't get this message unless it's on a draft. If it's open, shipment, or complete, we don't warn you about that. But the draft is where you can over-order. So we're saying, hey, did you know it's on another draft PO? Is that okay? Yes, that is. Okay, and then I can go ahead and go through my process. But know that as a buyer, you may not know that. It may have come in through the cash register. Someone else may have put it there, and now you're coming in. Let me move that out of the way. You're coming in and you're looking at it, and you don't realize that it's on a draft PO, you as a buyer. So that's where you'd want to come into your PO screen and see that, oh, it is, when I'm asking that question, and I'm ordering 4 of them. Okay. What's the rest of my information? How many on hand do I have? How many on order do I have? So how many am I going to have when I order this one? Do I really need to do that? Or should I be canceling it off, deleting it off of this PO? So this is where the tools really come into play. Okay, there are more tools. I don't know how long I should be going on with this, but I usually kind of wrap it up from here, so maybe I should go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I think just follow the standard format in that regard. But yeah, I mean, this has been super informative so far, and it's going great.
Excellent. Okay, let's then talk about these last areas. I want to talk about F10 save versus F12 post. That can be confusing. So F10 save. When you hit F10 save, you're telling Anthology, save the changes I've made on the screen, but don't take action on it. Just save it. That's it. When you select F12 post, you're saying take action. And Anthology is taking action when you post. So when I save this, I'm just saving what I did. Now I can close it, go do other things, come back into it. When I'm ready to order, that's when I'm going to post. And when I post, Anthology is going to do 3 things. It's going to update the on orders with whatever I have in the order column. It's going to change the status from draft to open. And it's going to change where it's located at from purchase orders to receiving. So again, I'm saying I am either ordering right now from the vendor by hitting F6EO, send order. By the way, if mine has timed out, if I already did this process and it timed out, I can always come back. So it timed out, and I'm here. It says sent with the date. I want to go check for the confirmation. I can do that by hitting F6EO and click on Get Confirmation. And it's going to go to that out directory and look for that file. It's not going to double your order because it's not going to create an order file and put it in your in directory. It's going straight to your out directory, looking for the confirmation file, bringing it back if it's there. Okay. I can also select F12 post. So if I've ordered somewhere else, I can now tell Anthology I did place an order. So when you post, Anthology is going to do those 3 things. Are you sure? Yes. Do you want to print? No. We're on PO number 26. 26 goes away. Where did it go? It went to receiving, waiting for your items to come in. So we go to receiving and we look at it. There's PO number 26. Okay. So that's purchasing. Any last questions before I close this down?
No, I think that I think that is has been a really great encapsulated walk